We're going to have a look at warped objects inside of Adobe Animate. So what I'm going to do is inside of Animate, click on New File. And we're going to want to make sure to create something that is targeting ActionScript 3.0. Again, ActionScript 3.0 is the native document type inside of Animate, and it is the most powerful. If you don't choose ActionScript as your platform type, you won't be able to use the rigging tools that we're going to demonstrate this week. So you could always just go to something like Social and choose the HD preset here. That one's going to be pretty good. That's, all of these are targeting ActionScript 3.0. You could also go to Advanced and just choose ActionScript 3.0 from right here and just put in a width and a height, whatever you want to do. That's something else you could do, right? So maybe I want this to be like just 800 by 500. I don't know. You can make it however big you want, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create here. So we can tell it's an ActionScript document, a native document, because it just says document right here. And the first thing I want to do is save this as an FLA file. So I'm going to say File, Save. And then I can pop in a name right here. Let's stick in my downloads. Pop in a name. So we'll just call this rigging.fla. And FLA is an animate document. So I'm going to hit save. And there we go. So the first thing I probably would like to do is to make this a little more interesting. Right now it's just a white stage. Maybe I'll turn this stage blue, light blue, like this. And then I'll just create some kind of like background, some rolling hills here. Very simply, maybe use the rectangle tool. Let's turn off the stroke. So we're just using fill. And that's a nice green right here. And then I'll go ahead and just drag out a basic rectangle, which we can then make use of our subselection tool. Again, this works very similar to the direct selection tool in something like InDesign or Illustrator, of course. And we'll just make a small adjustment to the anchor point placement using this tool and our keyboard keys. And yeah, that just sets up a very simple background for us. Let's add another one in here. And let's make the color a bit different by default. Should it be lighter or darker? I guess darker. And then I'll use that tool once more just to make some additional adjustments, just creating some variants and kind of how this is set up. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to lock this layer down and go ahead and rename it to BG for background. And then we're going to add in a new layer. So add new layer, and I'm going to call this Coffee Girl because, oops, no special characters. Yes, I put a space in there. So I'm going to hit OK. It's gone ahead and put an underscore in there for me. So it's corrected my mistake, which is very nice of Animate to do. And inside of this layer, notice it's an empty layer, an empty keyframe. Now I have this Coffee Girl, and you can see it's transparent. This is a little ping file. And I exported this from Adobe Illustrator. So she's got coffee, she's ready to go. This is an Adobe stock asset. So I downloaded this vector content from stock. There's a whole bunch of poses of her. And then I picked one out, I modified it a little bit and exported it as a ping using the asset export panel. So she is ready to add in here. So I'm gonna drag her directly onto my stage with the Coffee Girl layer selected. And there she is. So let's go ahead and transform her so she's a bit smaller. So I'm going to choose my free transform tool, and then holding down my shift key, just modify this until it's, there we go. That's something like that. Pretty good. And yeah. So now everything's in place. I've got my coffee girl layer with the coffee girl, and I've got my background layer, my BG layer with the background elements, which is locked down. So that brings us to rigging. Like, what are we talking about when we mention rigging? There's actually at least 3 different ways of rigging inside of Animate. There's the method we're going to use, which is through the Asset Warp tool. There's also inverse kinematics. So there's an IK Bones feature, and it's not open by default, but if you go into your edit toolbar, you can find this tool right here, the Bone tool. So there's also the Bind tool. Here you can create an armature on your character and then animate it that way. Here's the Asset Warp tool, which is what we're going to use today. And then the third way is using advanced layers and parenting layers to one another, and then just animating based on those relationships. But as mentioned, we are going to use this little guy. This is the newest way to rig a character. Or you could do it to a plant or something too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a character. So I'm going to choose my Asset Warp tool, and inside of my tool properties, I can see my warp options. So we can click any of these on and off. So I'm going to turn my envelope off. The envelope is, an envelope that appears outside and around the armature I create. And then we have create bones. Now I definitely want to create bones for my rig. That's something I need to have happen. And let's actually zoom out like 75% here. That's pretty good. Just so I can rig past down to her wrists and everything. And then we have to choose what kind of bones we're going to use. So using the Asset Warp tool, we can create hard bones, we can create soft bones, or what's known as flexi bones. And they work a little bit differently. For anything that's supposed to be like human bones, you're going to want to choose hard bones for that. Soft bones have much more give to them. They can be more bendy. Think about like a rope or a piece of foliage. That is appropriate for a soft bone. And then we have flexi. Flexi is like a soft bone, except you have Bezier handles that you can use to modify the curves. So we're going to keep that at hard. And with that done, I'm going to go ahead and start creating my rig. Now, the first thing you do is you decide where to place the first point. The first point acts as sort of like a root point. So lots of times for a character like this, you would put the root point at her chest. You could also put it down at her waist if she's not going to be moving, if you're not going to see her legs. That's appropriate as well. I like to start with sort of the heart up here or the chest. So I'm going to go ahead and click. And once I do that, it prepares my asset for me. And you can see we've got this sort of heart node right here. And as I move this tool around, we can see that bones will be created whenever I click something else. So if I click her shoulder, we've got a bone. If I click down to her elbow, we get a bone. I click to her wrist, we get a bone. And of course, if I extend this out to the coffee, then we get another bone. Now, if we want to create bones on across to her other arm, what we have to do is make a selection like this. So we select the heart bone again, or the root bone, and then we go to the shoulder once more, and the elbow, and then down to the wrist. We're never going to see her hand, so this is absolutely fine. And notice inside of my object properties here that we're dealing with a warped bitmap. So a warped bitmap is a type of warped object, and we've got our color effects here, but right below we've got warp options. So we can see the mesh or not. We can turn that on and off. I don't really need to see that, so I'm going to turn it off. Here's that envelope option. We can turn that on or off, and you can see how the envelope works. It gives you more chances for customization. And as I'm going through here, yeah, so create bones, absolutely, we want to create bones. And then you have your bone selection once again. And then for each particular bone and joint, you have a number of different ways of doing things. So I could click on this bone right here and then adjust the rotation of that bone. So if I go through and rotate it, you can see she's now smashed herself in the face with coffee, which isn't great. So I'm going to undo that. But yeah, you've got the ability to do that here. Now, of course, you can do it up here as well. So I could move the rig like this, and you can see how that works, right? So it's a very flexible way of working with your rig here. So let's see, what else do we want to create? I'm going to go ahead and click on her heart again. And let's bring a bone up to the base of her neck and then finally up to the top of her head. And then I'll click on it once more and we'll just go down to her waist. And from here, we can branch out to her legs and so on. Now, I'm not going to make a full rig here. I just want the basics because, of course, if I fit in a window, we're only going to see this much. And I can always clip content outside the stage, and then we don't even see anything else. So, yeah. Well, let's go back to 75 because I may want to make adjustments to this bone here. But at this point, so if I choose this tool, right, we can still move her around as usual. But at this point, we have created a rig. If I choose my Asset Warp tool again, we can make modifications to any of this. So for instance, if we wanted to make her arm a different bone type, we can change it to a soft bone. And you can see as a soft bone, it appears a bit differently. And if I move this, notice her arm can shrink and grow as a soft bone. If it's a hard bone, it does that as well, but it looks a bit different. So there are differences in how you work across these different bone types. In addition, we can freeze any of these joints. So maybe I'll freeze at her waist. That way, when we move things, like for instance, if I move her heart, you can see this is frozen here. It's pinned down. So yeah, but you can go through and you can make lots of little adjustments. Now, of course, if we do something like this, it's going to look wildly insane. So we don't want to do that. Something else I'll mention is the editing of a rig. So right when we're doing stuff like this, we're modifying the different joints and bones and things like that. If I right click on here and we look down, we can see the option to edit our rig. And if I enter into rig edit mode, it brings us into the warped asset itself. And then anything I adjust here, you can see I'm moving the joints and the bones. And this is only changing the rig itself. It's not deforming the art at all, right? So the rig is being changed, but it is having no particular issues when it comes to the artwork underneath. Now, it's also possible to remove any of the bones or any of the joints that we want. So I can choose this bone here and hit delete. And look at that. Now we have actually two rigs, which I don't want, of course. I'm going to do a Command or Control Z there. And when you're finished editing your rig, you can always just go back. And once you do that, let's fit in window, you'll be able to, right, edit things as normal. So let's have a look at how we're going to go about this. So what I want to do is I want her to sort of lurch back a little bit and look at her coffee and then hold up the coffee as if it's a trophy. That's my plan for this. So hopefully this goes okay. You can, of course, animate your content however you like. Now, the thing to know is that as we go through this, we're going to have to use keyframes and all of that normal stuff. So let's go ahead and I'm going to select and drag across these two frames here because I want to extend all of my content out to there. So, oops. So I'm going to long press on my frame insertion widget here and choose to insert frames up to that point. There we go. And then all I need to do is figure out how I want to keyframe this. So initially, I'll probably have her stationary until about frame 20. So at frame 20, I want to add a new keyframe. This is going to duplicate the keyframe at frame 1 on the Coffee Girl layer. And I want to keep it exactly like it is. So moving along, we can go to, I don't know, frame 30 or so. And of course, we can change these keyframes whenever we need to. And I'm going to create a series of poses using keyframes. So inserting a keyframe here, and then from keyframe at 20 to the present keyframe, I want to have her sort of move back a little bit. Recall that the pin at her waist is frozen, so it's immovable. So if I go ahead and select her heart frame, or joint rather, her heart joint, and pull her back a little bit, and maybe put her head forward a touch. And let's also move this a little bit here. So now we have a difference from there to there. And I don't know, we could shift this around a bit too. Notice the control I get with this. It's really, it's a really neat tool to work with. So those are my two poses. And then somewhere around here, let's insert a new keyframe. And basically, this is how you do it, right? You insert keyframes, you create a new pose, and we're going to make her closer and shift her arm. Now, you got to be careful. When the arm collides with the torso like this, it can deform quite a bit. So you got to be careful with that. And of course, it all depends upon, exactly what your content is like, how your content has been drawn. We don't want her to distort too much, do we? And let's shift her arm out like that, as if she's kind of shocked. The head distortion is a little too much. Let's drag it up a little bit. There we go. That's better. And yeah, where do we want to finish it off? Maybe she just kind of settles back to a more restful position here. And move this arm back like that. All right. So if we scrub, we can kind of see frame by frame how this animation is going to go, right? And what we're going to do is we want to add tweens between all of these different things. So I'm going to click and drag across all the different frames we want to add interpolation to, right? So this sequence here and this sequence here are going to be kind of stationary in my case. All of the movement is going to happen in these middle keyframe sequences. And then if we go over here to our tweens, you can see that we can create classic tweens or motion tweens. We can't create shape tweens here because we're not dealing with a shape. It's a warped object, and it's a bitmap-based warped object. So I'm going to create a classic tween, and notice that if I choose this, it creates a classic tween between all of the keyframes that I chose, right? Really convenient, an easy way to do it. Let's go back to the beginning and just play it back. Wow, and not great, right? So there's a couple things we can do. One thing I need to do is I need to select this, and then if I click and drag with it selected, I can move it forward. And notice these little guys, this is, it's just processing the motion as it does that. I'm gonna do the same thing here, shift that forward. And I want to have this portion be a bit elongated as well. There we are. So let's have a look and see how it plays back now. Okay, so probably what I would do is have a couple more holds on here. And let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and right click on that keyframe. And we can actually, we can copy, we can insert a keyframe here. Let's go ahead and copy this frame. And then if I move it over here and I paste my frames, and I'm gonna paste and overwrite frames. If you just paste frames, it'll actually push any frames before it out and lengthen our overall animation. If I overwrite frames, it's going to replace the selected frame. There we go. So now she pauses when she looks at it, right? And I'm going to do something similar here as well. So let's go ahead and copy that frame. And I mean, I really should have done this as I was setting things up, right? And just inserted more frames here and there. So I'm going to right click and choose to paste and overwrite frames once again. So that these two frames are duplicates. Because they're duplicates, there's no interpolation that's going on here. So I can click on this guy, and actually in my frame properties, I can remove that tween from both of these areas. Yeah, it might benefit for a bit more of a pause. So, right? Just shifting these things back and forth here and again, until we get our timings a little better. And this one might be a little too long of a pause. Easy to fix. Oh, I like that. There we go. Okay, so we've got our motion down, except it's a little stiff right now. It would benefit from some easing. So I'm gonna click anywhere within this tween, and instead of a classic ease, let's do an ease in and out, because there's motion that happens in both areas. We're just gonna double click on quad, and now it's a quad ease in out. I'm gonna do that for each one of these tweens here. Ease in out, double click on quad, verify it's been applied. Same thing with the third one right here. Let's play it back. So much more natural now in terms of the movement. All right, last thing I want to do is have her say something. So I'm gonna add new layer, call it exclaim, because that's what she's gonna do. And around here, I'm gonna insert a new keyframe, choose my text tool, and type in some text. So, wow, coffee. And of course, you could add anything you want to yours. This is just what I'm doing for mine. Let's go and find Peachy Keen JF. It's one of my favorite typefaces to use for stuff like this. And we have to choose a color for our text because we want it to stand out quite a bit. Maybe something yellow. So something yellow-orange like that. And I want to make it much larger too. And yeah, that should be pretty good. Let's use our free transform tool to rotate this a little bit. And we'll put it up by our head. And then I'll grab this line tool here. And I'm not sure what stroke size to do, maybe something like 12 or 13. I just want some really quick little strokes just sort of emanating from her and leading up to there. That's a bit, maybe instead of 13, I'll go down to like 8. And I also want the stroke to be the same color as the text here. There we go. That's not the same color, is it? But we can select these after the fact. Bring that down to 8. I can warp them a little bit so it looks like they're emanating from the same spot. And selecting them all, let's go ahead and make some changes to this. Now I don't know why it's not selecting this color properly. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Animate does some strange things sometimes. So be wary of that. And you can use your arrow keys as well. Sometimes I use the arrow keys to reposition things just because, it's just so precise. There we go. So she goes like this. Wow, coffee. And we don't even need to animate that. I mean, we could, but it jumping in is just fine. So let's preview the whole thing again. Yeah, pretty good. All right. So once it's completed, how do we get it out of Animate, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say right up here, quick share and publish. We're going to publish, and I'm going to publish this as a video. As soon as I hit publish, it's going to, hello. It's going to export it over using Adobe Media Encoder. And then we'll have a nice MP4 file that we can distribute wherever we want. So yeah, oh, there we go. Exported successfully. And here it is. Awesome.